Sav. And today we are back with episode 73. And like we promised, we are going to be covering the Uvalde massacre today. This is another heinous crime that happened earlier this year. Honestly, I want to say within like a week or two of the Tops massacre.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it was like a week or two after.
All of this happened in the springtime. Just a very scary and vivid time.
Yeah.
I would say out of 2022 thus far, as you may know, this case is involving minors. Lots of them.
Yeah.
But before we hop into this, we just want to say that because we didn't upload last week, we have 2 episodes out this week, a double upload. We got a short stuff, FNC, as well as the episode that you are currently tuned into. So yeah, hopefully that makes up for us being gone. We've been slumped with school and work and just life.
Trying to get it together, man. Just trying to get it together. It's been tough.
We're back in full swing though, cause it's about to be Halloween.
This episode we don't have a DOM, so we're just gonna get right into it. So strap on, get ready, and just enjoy. So jumping into this, we're gonna talk about Salvador Ramos, who was the gunman of this horrific incident. At the time of the attack, Salvador Ramos was 18 years old. Salvador had no prior criminal record and no history of mental illness treatment. After the rampage he enacted on Uvalde Elementary School, he was shot and killed by a Border Patrol agent who had rushed into the school without backup. People around Salvador came forward saying they noticed concerning things about him leading up to the massacre.
I just want to say that school shootings are just one of those things in America that happen all too often. And there is a huge discussion to be had behind them. Because we have quite a few out here in the U.S. They just happen. And if you go abroad and go to other countries, that's something that's not common and everyday, just living life type of stuff that they have to deal with. So I don't know. I find that really interesting. And the whole conversation behind school shootings is an interesting one to have, for sure.
Yeah, in other countries it's almost unheard of.
Right.
So many that...
And we're so desensitized to it as well, which is what really makes it scary.
It's the scariest, weirdest thing, but I don't know how we're going to have to go about fixing that. I don't know. We're just going to have to figure something out because, Jesus Christ.
I know how to fix it. Gun control.
Moneybag Joe, you hear that?
Period, point blank. We need better gun control.
Literally.
And this story specifically just proves that we need more gun control. Granted, this person had no history of mental illness or having treatment for mental illness. They had no criminal record. And, they had turned 18 and they were able to buy a gun. Cool. But even without having a criminal record and history of mental illnesses, I don't know. I feel like there should be more to vet if a person should be able to have a gun. It should go further than just, have they been to jail? Have they ever been caught for a crime? Because people commit crimes every day, but you don't always get caught. And same thing with mental illnesses. They can go undetected for a long period of time.
That's my thing. Just because there's no written history of like a mental illness or any like arrest record doesn't mean you should rule out those things, because people can still do very, very heinous things
in their background. Yeah, I agree.
He was increasingly isolating himself, having rageful outbursts and lots of aggression towards those around him. And so my biggest thing about cases like this is this stuff always comes out after the fact. It's never before, never during, but it's always after where, they were like this, we noticed this before. Well, why was nothing done beforehand
Because you don't think it'll get to that point.
Yeah. We don't learn from our past mistakes. He would send cryptic and unwarranted messages to random teen girls living in Germany and California. He would even send photos of guns, ammo, and description of desires he had to hurt and kill people. He even sent a series of messages on Yubo, which is a social network, just before the shooting. Investigators are examining texts they believe Ramos sent to a 15-year-old German girl, including one minutes before the massacre, warning that he was about to shoot up in elementary school.
Just terrible. I don't know. Something about people committing crime against children just doesn't sit right with me at all.
Because they're so innocent. Like,
yeah, there's no reason to want to hurt a child. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just one of those lines you don't cross. Right. And when people cross that line, there's no remorse. There's no going back from that. I don't understand why people choose to shoot up schools for one, but elementary schools at that. I don't get it at all.
It doesn't make sense.
Can't relate. Some more details about Salvador. On Instagram, photos were found on an account of his under the alias name The Biggest Op. The photo showed him in the mirror posing for a selfie and another with a gun magazine in his lap. I never understood why people thought it was cool to just post shit like that, but it's not. Just want to put that out there. That's just fucking stupid. Why would you document your own crime? Like, I don't know. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't get that shit either. I think it's, I don't know. People are weird.
Yeah. And this one was a weird one for sure.
Yeah.
Ramos even tagged a photo with 2 long guns to an Instagram account that had just over 10,000 followers and asked them to share it. That's just weird too. Like, why are you coming to my page asking me to share a picture of these guns? Who are you?
Right.
Like, what? May 17th, Salvador turned 18 years old, and his first action was to purchase a gun a day after his birthday. It's almost like he was just waiting to turn 18. He didn't want to sneak around and have to, like, try to worry about getting the gun.
Mm-hmm. Usually guys, like, I don't know, I've seen people like this before. They literally get excited about this type of stuff. When they turn 18, they're like, oh, I'm going to buy my first handgun, or I'm going to do this and that. I'm like...
It's weird.
Okay.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
Because, like, you're planning to use it. Like, why else would you be so excited for it? Just to look at it and hold it? I don't think so. Like, the purpose of purchasing something is to get the use out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not just buying rifles or handguns to shoot animals. That's not what they're designed for. Right. They have guns designed for that. Right. He bought an AR-style rifle and a few days later returned to buy another gun. I'm assuming he returned to the same shop to get the second gun. The day of the shooting, he sent a message saying he, quote-unquote, got a little secret, and later typed, quote-unquote, I'm about to. I don't know who these messages were to, but I don't know. In the article that I read, it was basically stated that these messages were sent too late for somebody to respond or, like, get a hold of authorities to stop the crime before it happened. AKA he probably typed I'm about to literally as he was about to commit this crime. And so whoever finally got the text or saw it or, you know, had the opportunity to respond to it, it was already too late, pretty much. Neighbors and people in the area stated that in recent years, he would often get into fights with his mother, sometimes to the point where the police would be called in. That doesn't sound good.
Terrible. So not only is he spiraling, he's buying guns, and he's fighting with his mom a lot. These don't sound like good signs.
At all. And with him, like, I don't know, the crime that he did at this school was already enough. But the crime that he did before he got to the school, man, like, I don't know how you could hurt somebody that probably loved you so much.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, I don't get it. Some sick stuff.
It is.
To continue on, some believe that a few things from Salvador's past could have played a part in his last actions. When he was a child, he never quite fit in and would occasionally get bullied until he became a bully himself, which is never an excuse for these type of things. Never.
And I feel like that's like the classic story you know? You just get bullied so much throughout your life that you just take it out on the world, which is crazy to think of because in hindsight, everybody's been a victim of bullying.
To some degree, yeah.
Yeah, like literally everybody has. All throughout life, not even just as a child. I mean, you can get bullied as an adult. It definitely happens, especially in today's day and age and on social media and just the world we live in. Everybody could be a victim of bullying.
Mm-hmm. A childhood friend came forward saying that when they were younger, Salvador began cutting his own face with knives for fun.
And that didn't call for like mental health evaluation. I'm just saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Like,
it's always after the fact.
Right, but this proves, like, just because there was no documentation saying, well, he went to therapy or, well, you know, we took him to a doctor, doesn't mean that people aren't still fucked in the head. Like, it still happens, and it can go unnoticed, but I don't know how that goes unnoticed. Like, if my child was cutting their face, like, you know, maybe I didn't see them cut their face, but I see the cut. I'm gonna ask questions.
Yeah. It's like, where did they come from? And what were you doing to get a cut like that?
And if he says he was cutting his face for fun, yeah, that would have been a huge red flag right there.
Right. A former classmate of Ramos said that he, quote unquote, wasn't a big guy. He just had this ego like he was invincible. The morning of that traumatizing Tuesday, Salvador shot and wounded his grandma at her home and then fled the scene.
And this is the crime that I just mentioned previously. The crime that he enacted before he actually got to the school was just enough as is. Like, you shot your own grandma in the face.
Yeah.
Early in the morning at her home, assuming he lived with her.
Right. Neighbors were called to the home when she was seen staggering and stumbling out of her home. It was clear she had been shot in the face. Though the grandma survived the attack, her condition is currently unknown. That's
sad and terrifying.
Super fucking sad and terrifying. And I really hope that she's doing okay.
Yeah. I would hope so as well. In the face. Like, that just shows there was no remorse. Like, he didn't feel bad about doing this and then continued to wreak havoc elsewhere.
Right.
And destroy so many other lives. But before we get into the hell of it all, we're going to take a moment to thank our sponsor.
And we will see you soon.
Have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free and easy to use.
It has creation tools that allow for recording and editing straight from your phone or computer. This means you can view your listener count, upload vidcasts, and personalize your show, making it the best user experience around.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many more, making it so you don't have to do it individually.
You can even monetize the podcast without minimum listenership.
Anchor has all the tools to make a podcast in one place, like adding files, sound effects, and audience messages.
So download Anchor today at anchor.fm, and that's anchor.fm, ANCHOR.fm.
So what are you doing? Start your own podcast now.
And we're back.
Now we get into what happened. And this is referring to the school. On May 24th, a horrific event took place at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. On this day, 18-year-old gunman Salvador Ramos took the lives of 19 students and 2 teachers over the course of 1 hour. The gruesome event began around 11:06 a.m. and lasted until 1:06 p.m.
Man, I could only imagine. And it's really sad because these are children. So this is something that's going to live with a lot of them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And so I could only imagine what it would have been like being in that situation for that hour.
Yeah, just unimaginable terror. I don't know, we're not parents, but putting yourself in those shoes of being a parent of a child in elementary school, putting your trust into these public schools that are funded by the working class, the people that are sending their children to these schools, it's just not a good feeling to know that the safety of these children is not always at the forefront of every day.
Right.
I feel like public schools in America are not well regulated. They're not always the safest establishment, if that makes sense. Like, not every elementary school has security guards sitting outside, right, out front, or has police officers parked across the street.
Nobody expects shit like this to happen, so I guess they don't necessarily plan for it. They don't allocate the resources.
They do try to plan for it, though, with, like, school shooting drills, and they teach teachers, like, self-defense and things like that.
Yeah.
So they do try in that sense, but as far as protecting the premises, I feel like we're lacking in that category, for sure.
Yeah, I can agree there. So now we're going to get into the timeline and the response. From 11:21 a.m. to about 11:27 a.m., Ramos steals his grandmother's truck and drives to Robb Elementary School, which is only a few blocks away from his grandmother's home. Before he arrived, a teacher propped open the west side door of the school.
I was going to say, was this like... I don't want to say that, like, the teacher played a part in it, but that's odd for that shit to just happen the way it did.
Yeah, it is very weird. Around 11:29, Ramos crashed into a ditch near the school. At this point, he exited the vehicle and fired 3 rounds at 3 males near a funeral home, and those 3 males called 911.
And even then, it's just too late. Once the suspect is in the building, I mean, unless you're just going in there full arms, like everybody rushing in to get them, you kind of have to, like, work with the suspect to get them out.
Yeah.
Like, you have to try to coerce them. The teacher that previously propped the west door of the school open noticed Ramos approaching, slammed the door shut, warned all the students to return to their classrooms, and called 911. At 11:30 a.m., Ramos tosses a backpack over the school perimeter fence property and starts shooting. Coach Yvette Silva sees this and tells a group of 3rd graders to lock down. That's crazy. It's just, like we said earlier, it's sad to know that in America, like, elementary school kids know, 3rd graders know what lockdown means.
Right. They have to, like
there's a protocol. Yeah. Like, they know what to do in this situation. It's just, I don't know, it's sad, and I feel like it shouldn't be like this, Something about it just feels wrong.
Right.
There shouldn't be a fear to get an education. Somebody just jumped over the fence, and he's shooting, Silva reports over the school radio.
And it gets worse. This is continuing the timeline. At 11:32, Ramos begins firing shots into the windows and rooms on the west side of the school. This, along with Coach Silva's radio call, sends the school into a full lockdown.
So at this point, he was still outside of the building, but he was on the premises, the property.
Mm-hmm. According to ALERT, which is the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training Team report, a Uvalde police officer saw the gunman outside and asked for permission to shoot. And it came out days later after the report was made that Mayor Don McLaughlin disputed this entire claim.
So what you're saying is a police officer was in the area.
Yeah.
Saw him, asked if he could just shoot, and was denied permission.
Mm-hmm.
From 11:33 to 11:37, within this time frame, Ramos entered the school through a back door with a lock that failed to engage.
And with this, the teacher couldn't have known because the locks, they engage from the outside. So
what does engage mean?
Engage means the lock mechanism actually working, so the door actually locks.
So it wasn't locked, actually, even though it was, technically.
Yeah.
Somebody, they automatically lock when they close, but this particular door didn't lock.
Right.
That's weird. Ramos walks into classroom 111, then briefly walks out and back into the classroom. And I'm assuming this classroom was full.
No, this classroom was actually empty.
He then fired at least 100 rounds in over 2.5 minutes. So he was just wasting bullets. Maybe trying to scare people and get them to run out from somewhere. At 11:35, two groups of police officers entered the building, and three of the officers rushed through the same door as Ramos. So the same unlocked back door. At 11:36 a.m., Pete Arredondo, the chief of the school district PD, another school district officer, and two Uvalde police officers entered through the south entrance of the school. So they did go in. They, like I said, full arms. They went in there and were trying to get him. That's crazy though. Like, you're running around the school for an hour and you guys don't cross paths?
The weird thing is, especially with Mr. Pete Arredondo here, he went in with no radio. Yeah, no radio. He wanted to have both of his hands on his gun just in case Ramos would come out and like start shooting, so he would be ready to shoot him. But it also caused so much miscommunication throughout the whole process.
Yeah.
That made things so much longer than they had to be.
Wow. So that was a fuck up that they probably didn't know at the time. Damn.
A deadly encounter, continuing the timeline once again. At 11:36, the first group of officers approached classroom 111. They said they heard gunfire. From 11:37 to 11:41, an officer peered into the room 111 where he and another officer were faced with gunfire, which led to them retreating.
So he was still in there?
Yeah.
Empty. There was nobody in that classroom. I wonder if he was like contemplating, should I really like do this?
Right.
Like, I'm here now, but they already here too.
And I think at that point, he probably was thinking like, well, shit, I have to. Now I'm already in it.
But the police were outside the door of the classroom. There's only one way in and out that motherfucker.
After 11 rounds, Peter Arredondo checks and finds that room 111 was empty. He says, there are no babies in here. It's awards day. So I'm guessing.
Wow.
I'm guessing that there was probably a ceremony going on. Literally, I think there was a ceremony going on.
A ceremony? I think he was meaning it's awards day as in like...
Thank God.
Thank God there's no children in here. Like, this is something to celebrate, you know. Right. Maybe. I don't know. You could be right, though. It might have been, like, awards day. Yeah, an awards ceremony. I don't know. Let us know if you guys know what they meant by that.
Arredondo was hoping that other classrooms were also empty, but he later realized that there was a possibility of injuries and fatalities.
At 11:40, Arredondo called the Uvalde Police Department from his cell phone and described the situation, asking for the SWAT team and a radio. I think that was a smart move. SWAT, I feel like, is always a good call. Mm-hmm. I don't think you could really go wrong with SWAT. And a radio, he should have had that already. I just don't. And like splitting ways with the men that he already came in the building with. He had officers with him. 11:41, Uvalde Police Sergeant Coronado requests shields and flashbangs from the police department. So shields as in like police shields? Mm-hmm. Okay. And those stop bullets, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And flashbangs, which I assume is those like, not torches, but those things that...
They're kind of like grenades. You pull the pin, you throw them, and then they flash, and it's like smoke everywhere.
That's what I thought. Okay. The Texas House Committee report stated that no officers tested to see if any of the classroom doors were locked. Dispatch asked one of the other officers who did have a radio if there were students in room 112. Coronado requested a mirror to look around the corners. So, okay, so Coronado was in there. Mm-hmm. And he was asking somebody to bring him a mirror to, like, angle it into the classroom to see. Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because most public schools, the doors to the classrooms have, like, little windows in them. So you can see students walking by or, like, the principal. I don't know. But, they have windows in them. Yeah. Which a suspect, a killer could use as well to see if there's anybody in a classroom. But it's interesting. I wonder what the range of these windows was if he was asking for a mirror to be able to see the full classroom. It must have been an obstructive view.
For that, it probably was also like you just didn't want to step out in the open, and the possibility of him coming out and actually seeing you and shooting you, he's probably trying to make sure that he wasn't like.
Well, I would assume he would have to be at the window regardless to use the mirror, right?
Not necessarily. He's probably peeking around the corners in the hallways to see if Ramos is wandering around or coming around or
no.
whatever.
He wanted to look around the corners of room 112, to look through the window. That's what I'm assuming, right? To look around corners. Are you talking about just of the hallways?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought he was asking for a mirror to like see into.
No,
that's why I brought up this whole thing about the window.
The doors have windows, but it would make sense to get a mirror to look around the corners just in case.
Right, sneaking around. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Or even like victims.
Yeah.
Okay, I get what you're saying. My bad.
So now we're gonna get into the evacuation and horrific realizations. At 11:42 a.m., children began to be evacuated. So they were able to get at least some of the children out when this first started, like, going.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
But where did they evacuate from?
From later research, they actually evacuated, like, from windows and, like, places that were actually safe enough to
just all around the building, wherever they were. Okay. The closest.
Yeah. A Uvalde County constable, and a constable is a peace officer, by the way. A Uvalde County constable by the name Johnny Field arrives at the north end of the hallway and discusses with Arredondo over the phone the need to evacuate the students. Officers break windows to get children out. And at 11:43, Robb Elementary announces on Facebook that the school is under lockdown due to gunshots in the area.
That doesn't sit right with me. Yeah. In the area?
Yeah.
If I was a mother and I was at work and I received this text message or I saw this Facebook notification saying that the school is under lockdown due to gunshots in the area, I would be concerned, but I wouldn't be as concerned if I would have gotten that same notification from Facebook, but it's saying that the gunshots were in the school. I feel like the level of severity there is very different. And it's almost like they were downplaying what was actually happening.
So, yeah, about that. So they did downplay it because it got, I think Arredondo, he ruled it as a barricaded shooter, meaning like Ramos was barricaded and shooting because he figured that the kids were, there was no more harm to the kids because he didn't see kids in room like 111. So he thought, okay.
That most of the classrooms were empty.
Yeah, there's no kids in here, so maybe all the other classrooms are empty. Which caused for that error. So there, at the same time, the Uvalde PD posted that a large police presence was at the school and the public should avoid the area. So now you have conflicting messages in the same post.
It's like, it's serious. Oh, but it's serious enough to where you can't come down the street.
Right.
Okay, so what's going on? Is it just in the area or is it in the school? Like, be clear. Mm-hmm. I hate the cryptic shit when it comes to news and crimes that are happening. Like, I get they don't want to upset the public and scare the public, but damn, like, I'm just thinking about all these concerned parents. Yeah. But they probably weren't as concerned because they didn't think that it was happening in the school because, like we mentioned, it was said that it happened in the area, not in the school. That's just...
That's one of the things I hate about media. So media, you'll get a story, right? They'll post a headline, but then, that headline doesn't seem too bad. And then seconds later or like minutes later, the headline gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. So it's like, why didn't you just say all of this to begin with? But I understand there has to be developments and there has to be all that.
And oftentimes in the news specifically, the headline will be crazy, like intense, they need a headline title. But then you read the article or the description of the headline and it's not as serious as the headline makes it out to be. So I could just see how getting that information and getting that notification could be misleading, to say the least. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're at work, so you're worried about work, and you're thinking your kid is safe. Yeah, there's reports of shooting in the area, but that doesn't necessarily mean your kid is in danger. Right. Like, I don't know, especially depending on the area of the school, shootings in the area could be a normal thing. Right. But it's just different with the wording. It's different when you say there's shooting at or in the school. I feel like that brings it to a whole nother level.
Right.
Like you said, the story needs to develop, but I don't know. I just think about like the parents.
For me, even if I were to hear, oh, there are shots near my child's school, I would still be worried because, first of all, that's an elementary school.
At 11:48 a.m., Uvalde School District Officer Ruben Ruiz, who was inside the school, reports that his wife, Ava Morales, had been shot. And Ava was a teacher at Robb Elementary. At 11:53 a.m., Luke Williams with the Texas Department of Public Safety arrives outside the building. Onlooker Angel Ledesma streams a live video showing parents around the school and begs police to enter the school. At 11:56 a.m., radio communication failed to provide any clarity to law enforcement. According to the Texas House Committee, witnesses did not have any knowledge of the communication.
So basically, when they were going back and doing the report, they were asking people, like, did you guys hear anything about the police communicating, or did you guys hear anything coming from the police? Did they communicate with you guys? And nobody had any knowledge of that. Nobody said that.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what?
Nobody was communicating anything clearly. Like, it was just all...
So the police were just in there sneaking around too, pretty much.
Yeah, nobody...
With guns.
Yes.
And not announcing themselves. Now we get into the final moments of the tragedy.
At 12:03 p.m., a student from room 112 calls for a minute and 12 seconds. Reports show that Orlando did not know because there was no way to get critical info from the outside. Like we mentioned before, he didn't have a radio.
So there was a call to 911 from room 112.
Mm-hmm.
And because he didn't have his radio.
He didn't know.
And that would have been critical information because then they would have proceeded to enter the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't have just been, wondering, do you think there's anybody in 112?
Right.
They would have actually done something.
Texas House Committee stated there was no evidence of any of the officers who learned about the call acting to shift to an active shooter style response. So like I mentioned earlier, they took this response and it was more of like a aborted shooter type of response. Like he was barricaded and shooting somewhere, as opposed to it being an active shooter where they could have been more forceful.
Right. Okay, so AKA they were under the impression that he was just in a room shooting.
Mm-hmm.
But what? Like,
yeah.
What's the likelihood of that? I don't agree.
There was no command post set up, and other officers were needed to keep parents out of the school.
There was no command post set up either?
Nope.
Like to tell people...
No chain of command, no nothing. Like, it was just chaos.
There was nobody that the parents could go to except for police just telling them, hey, keep back.
And they didn't even know anything, really. They were just there.
12:10 p.m., it was a student that called?
Yeah.
A third grader.
Mm-hmm.
At 12:10 p.m., the student from 112 calls 911 again and says multiple people are dead. At this point, SWAT officers arrive and officers in the hall begin passing out gas masks. At 12:13 p.m., the student calls once again and explains that several children and one of her teachers is deceased. She is told to stay on the line this time. At 12:16, the student calls again and says that 8 or 9 students are alive. So what happened to her being on the line?
I'm guessing that it cut.
Wow. At 12:23, the Border Patrol unit arrived and set up medical triage.
And this is like down the hall, like at the restrooms, like
in the school though.
Yeah, in the school. So now we get into the breaching the classroom and getting the suspect. At 12:30 p.m., officers moved closer to classroom 111 and prepared to breach, but it did not happen at that time. And this is because, for some reason, they were searching for master keys to open all the classroom doors because nobody checked to see if the doors were locked, so they just automatically assumed they were all locked.
Wasting time.
Yeah.
When I'm assuming they weren't locked.
They weren't. At least classroom 111
wasn't locked.
Yeah.
Because he was just in there. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he didn't think to lock it.
Right. At 12:38, Orlando attempts to communicate with Ramos in both English and Spanish, and this causes the gunman to shoot at the door. Amidst the standoff, the Texas Rangers, along with the Border Patrol unit, were testing master keys, in which the second master key was used to open the already unlocked room 111.
Wasting time. At 12:46 p.m., Arredondo gives the approval for officers to enter if they were ready, to which the Border Patrol Tactical Unit breached the classroom.
In this point specifically, he was kind of on the fence about it, so the Border Patrol head just said, fuck it, and go ahead and go in. And
What do you mean he was on the fence about it?
yeah.
The student states that she heard the police enter the classroom next door. At 12:50 p.m., a team of officers breached the room and killed 18-year-old gunman Salvador Ramos. Now, this is different than what I had when I did research.
What'd you have?
We read it in the beginning about him. After the rampage he enacted on the school, he was shot and killed by a Border Patrol agent who had rushed into the school without backup.
Yeah, that is different.
So I'm assuming my information was wrong. The source that had said that was wrong. And I'm assuming maybe the information came out like right after the event. Yeah. Because when I was reading the article about it, it kept saying Tuesday, as if it had just happened like a couple days ago or that week. So I'm sure the story was still developing. And I'm pretty sure you got the full rounded final timeline.
This is like a minute by minute.
Yeah. Okay, so that clears that up. He had been hiding in a closet and emerged once officers entered the room. At 12:51 p.m., children were moved out of room 112, and once the student that had been calling makes it outside, the call had cut. So she was on the phone with police even then. At 1:06 p.m., police announced the shooter was in custody. They later recanted this information. I was going to say, how is he in custody if he's dead? Yeah, there was a lot that went wrong there. Too much.
Yeah.
That could have been so much better.
Yeah. You and the Texas House Committee say the same thing. The Texas House Committee criticized the officers by saying there was an unacceptably long period of time before officers breached the classroom, neutralized the attacker, and began rescue efforts. Given the information known about the victims who survived through the time of the breach and who later died on the way to the hospital, it is plausible that some victims could have survived if they had not had to wait 73 additional minutes for rescue.
That's insane. That's just so sad and unfortunate. And once again, this case, the big issue here is lack of communication. It's just, like they said, it's unacceptable. Like, I don't know how you could fuck that up more. I just don't understand why. Like, what? And wasn't Arredondo, like, the chief of police?
I don't know how that went. It's weird how that works. So
Chief of police?
Yeah, chief of the school district police department.
So he was chief of police?
Yeah.
In the area. And, wow. Fumbled this completely. So that was it for the timeline and the events that took place. So what I'm unclear about is if he was in 111, he was in 111 the whole time.
Yeah, so
he was shooting through the wall.
Yeah, so 111 and 112 are like side by side at this.
Right.
Yeah, so he was basically just shooting through the wall.
That's scary because you don't know where the bullets are coming from. Like in that room.
Exactly.
There's shit's just coming.
And not only did all those in 112 have to deal with that situation, it went as far as to go down and hit a teacher in room 109 too.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now we're going to list off the names of those that were lost that day. McKenna Lee Elrod, who was 10 years old. Layla Salazar, who was 11. Miranda Mathis, age 11. Nevaeh Bravo, age 10. Jose Manuel Flores Jr., age 10. Xavier Lopez, age 10. Tess Marie Mata, age 10. Rogelio Torres, age 10. Aliana, or Ellie for short, Amaya Garcia, age 9. Eliana A. Torres, age 10.
Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez, age 10. Jackie Cazares, age 9. Uzziah Garcia, whose age is unknown, but I'm sure he's in the general age range. Jace Carmelo Levanos, who's age 10. Maite Juliana Rodriguez, age 10. Jayla Nicole Sugero, age 10. Amiri Joe Garza, age 10. Alexandria Lexi Anaya Rubio, age 10. Alethea Ramirez, age 10. And these last two victims are the teachers who died in this incident. Irma Garcia, age 48, and that's the teacher in room 109. And Eva Morales, age 44.
It's just so sad because they were all so young and they were literally just children. Like, so many children. And with shit like this, I don't see how people are not scared to have kids.
Like, I couldn't even imagine having to wake up. You know, you send your kid to school and you just think, oh, they're going to be safe. They're with their teacher. They're learning. They're getting their education. And you're at work and you see headlines like this and you have to rush to the school just to find out that maybe one of your kids is a victim to this.
Yeah. All of it is just so unnecessary and so vile and just, I don't know, you just have to be evil to do something like this.
Yeah. There's no other explanation for it, just pure evil. So now we're going to get into Maya Cerrillo, the girl who survived room 112. And this is the girl that was calling the police. Right. 11-year-old Maya Cerrillo was a survivor of the tragic shooting. She has stated that she can't understand why law enforcement didn't come rescue her and her classmates sooner. As the attack carried on, Cerrillo covered herself in her dying friend's blood in an attempt to survive what she told CNN felt like 3 long, agonizing hours. It was only after the shooting that Cerrillo overheard that police were standing outside the school while the terrifying rampage continued. Officials acknowledged that local police would not let the tactical squad immediately go in because the on-scene commander believed the risk to children was over. Just to go back to your question earlier of how she was able to call the police. So in the time these events were taking place, before her friend tragically passed away, they pried their teacher's phone out of her hand to use it. So their teacher had already passed and they were getting her phone to call the police. Maya's family has stated that they have not been able to hug her because of bullet fragments still in her back, and fragments of her hair have been falling out because of the wounds. Maya stated that she wanted to share her story to help other children. She wanted the world to know what she saw and what she survived. And with that, that's been the Uvalde Massacre.
And I think now would be a good time to just share a moment of silence for the victims. So now we get into the wind down, kind words, and how you can support the show. Our first wind down is, in the wake of these events, what do you believe should take place regarding gun laws in the U.S.? I don't think we should have access to guns. I feel like people's main excuse for having a gun is to protect themselves from other people's guns. Just eliminate the problem altogether.
Yeah, I would say eliminate the problem altogether, but since that may be a very unlikely outcome, I would say educate everyone. Educate everyone on how to use guns, what their purpose is to be used for, even though I don't feel like we should be using guns to harm each other anyway, but there are those people. So just teach everyone gun safety. It may not completely eradicate issues like this, but it will definitely slow them down for sure. If everyone knows how to use a gun, everyone understands the dangers and the safeties, I feel like it would be a little better.
I agree. And to piggyback off of that, I think educating, whether it be in a school setting, at home, as a parent, but educating each other on how to help somebody who is a victim of being shot. I think that could help as well. Being there in the moment, oftentimes there are other people around, but what do you do? You see in movies people applying pressure to the wound. That is something that can and does help slow the process of the effect that a bullet can have on the human body. Like you said, educating yourself, educating each other on gun safety, and just protecting each other when something like this happens.
Wind down number 2. Do you believe the Texas House Committee was right to criticize the job done by police?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm criticizing too.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody should. This seems like it's a big wake-up call to the reality of school shootings here in the U.S. As if we haven't had these, events turn into realities and eye-openers in the past, but it's just another strike in the book. I don't know what we have to do, or, what can we do to stop this? It's like a horrible phenomenon that just keeps happening. And I'm over it.
It's one of those things where, it's like I said, this country doesn't learn from past mistakes. They keep allowing things like this to happen. They keep saying, oh, we're going to fix it, and nothing gets done. We're still here in 2022 dealing with gun violence from these people that you think are mentally ill or have these certain ailments, but that doesn't matter. Like, that's not the issue. The issue is the guns. Like, you keep allowing people like this to get access to guns, and stuff like this keeps happening. So what do you think the common denominator is here?
Yeah. Whether mental health is involved or not, whether prison time is involved or not, a criminal record or not, like you said, the common denominator is guns. And that brings us to our third wind down. What do you believe could have prevented this from happening? I don't think there's anything that could have prevented it. I don't know. The only thing I could think is just more security on the premises of a school like this. But then when we got into the case and me finding out that there was an officer that saw him before he even entered the building, I don't know, like, it kind of takes away from that. So it makes me think he should have just shot. He shouldn't have asked for permission or waited. There's somebody with a gun approaching a school. Shoot. Like, you're there. Shoot. What else would they be at a school with a gun for? Right. I don't know. What about you?
You can never prepare for situations like this. So I would say preventing it, especially in this case, would have been to just shoot him when you saw him. Just take him out. There's no questions. You don't need to ask your commander. You have a gun. You were trained. Do what you were trained to do.
I feel like there should be protocol for that. If you see somebody approaching a school or a place that children are known to frequent, whether that be a park, a school, whatever, either quickly apprehend them or shoot.
Yeah. Especially if there's an imminent danger like such happening, should definitely, no questions asked.
Especially in a case like this, and I don't know if I mentioned it in the about section of Salvador, but he was also sporting tactical gear, just like in the Tops shooting, but his, I don't believe, was bulletproof. So now we get into the kind words, and what are your kind words for this week?
Kind words this week. Stay kind. It doesn't matter what your day's like. Doesn't matter how your day's going. Just stay kind, because you never know when the last time you see someone could be, or when the last time they might see you. So just stay kind.
Yeah, and along with staying kind, let people know that you love them. It's okay to call somebody just to say you love them. It's okay to spread love, even to strangers. But just let people know that you have love for them and that you care about them. I feel like it's an undervalued thing to say to somebody these days. So, yeah, and that includes family, friends, acquaintances, children around you, elders around you, disabled around you. Tell them you love them and tell them that you care about them.
Tell them you love them and mean it when you say it. How can you support the show? You can like, comment, and subscribe. That's if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure that you're leaving a rating and a review. They really help us out a lot. Follow us on Instagram at Deeper Than Most PC. PC is short for podcast. You can even email us at deeperthanmostpc@gmail.com.
And we will respond.
Yes.
And you can join our Facebook group. Maybe we might make a new one. It's up for discussion. So
Yeah.
And on TikTok at DTM Pod. And I think with all of that, we are done here today. Sorry to end this on such a tragic note, but I think this is something that is worth sitting with, and feeling the gravity of this event and how many lives were indefinitely and forever altered by this event. It could happen to anybody, and don't ever be one of those people that says it'll never happen to me, because you never know.
With that being said, this has been episode 73, the Uvalde Massacre. I've been your host, DJ.
And I've been your host, Sab.
Catch us next time on
Deeper Than Most.